Greetings and welcome to the third session of your stress management course. So, today we will be starting off with our second unit where we will be discussing, we'll be looking at the different kinds of stress, and also we'll be looking at post traumatic stress disorder. We will look at, also the, coping strategies that you can use for uh, stress. All right, let's just quickly move to the next slide. Yeah, so in order to understand how stressed someone is, there are stress tests that are conducted. So here I would want you to watch this video of how a stress test is conducted, usually in a clinical setting.
Hello, my name is Greg Kluger, Manager of Cardiopulmonary Diagnostics and Cardiac and Pulmonary Rehab here at Leeds and South. Today we're going to be talking about cardiac stress testing. The indication for cardiac stress testing is to look at the physiologic effects of your heart. We want to look at the rate at which your heart is beating. We want to look at the response of the heart rate. We also want to look at the response that you have with blood pressures during the test. So we're physically looking at the heart physiologic action, the reaction of the heart, how it's working under stress. Now, the indications for the cardiac stress test are many. It can be for a cardiac evaluation for surgery. It can be for a patient who comes into our emergency department with chest pain and it's unspecified. So we have a cardiac stress test to identify whether or not there's been any type of damage to the heart. All patients who come in for cardiac stress testing, independent of the type of test that they have to have a standard 12-lead EKG, electrocardiogram prep attached to them so that we can effectively monitor the rhythm of the heart. We have a number of cardiac stress tests that we perform, and a lot of it depends upon what we're looking for and the level of the patient's ability to perform a test. With our cardiac stress testing, obviously we try to get patients to perform exercise. Exercise is the best way to stimulate the heart and to get an accurate view of how the heart is responding. In many situations, the patient is not physically able to exercise, so we have to resort to using a chemical stress test, either an adenosine or a dobutamine, to simulate that activity of the heart to evaluate the function, blood pressure, the heart rate, and the ECG changes, if any, of the cardiac stress test. We do probably anywhere from 10 to 15 cardiac stress tests a day, a variety. Today, I think we're doing some half our tests are chemical. We have many that are walking tests. We have 3 or 4 of the echo stress tests. So we're very versed in it. It's a very safe procedure. It's something that's very diagnostic, and it's helpful for the cardiologist and your family physician to determine what your heart is doing.
Yeah, so you would have gotten a idea about how a stress test is done, right? So that is one test where you actually trying to understand and how much of a stress your body can take. We already looked at how when we are under stress we tend to uh, our heart beats tend to rise, our blood pressure rises, and also it can also have adverse effects like heart attack and the like other diseases as well, disorders. So these kind of stress tests are conducted to understand our stress level and how much of stress can be taken. All right. So we also have tests to understand, like questionnaires to understand how much of a stress you can take. So one such online available stress test is easily available on online. So you can probably go to bemindfulonline.com and take up the test. So you will be able to understand, how much of stress you can take and all of that. Yeah. So going ahead, we all know that uh, academic stress is something that all of you would be going through at this point in time, right? So you will have a lot of assignments to submit, you have a lot of studying to do, but at previously or in earlier times, it was thought that students were the least affected by stress because all they had to do was study, and they had to do anything because studying was not considered stressful. So but now with researches and with a lot of modern technology, a lot of studies being conducted, it is understood that stress is a lifestyle crisis. Even the daily hassles, even the minor stresses that we call, is also affecting our health, our mental health, our physical health alike. Now, it is not like, so if I'm younger than young at age, I do not get affected by stress. It's not like that. Irrespective of your developmental stage or your age, you are prone to stress. So, one of the major reasons why students are under stress, or why there is a lot of academic stress, is because there is a high expectation level from the parents for the children, how they need to perform. Like previously, we also talked about the NEET exams, the JEE exams, all these competitive exams, which students are taking up in order to progress further in their career, in the studies, or education, of anything of that sort. So there's a high expectation. Now these high expectations, they are being pressurized, and it is again going to become a very huge burden on these children, and definitely that is resulting in stress, which we refer to as academic stress. So these two people, Lee and Larson, they conducted this particular study to understand, like, stress, and to explain what actually is happening with stress. And they came to know that there is an interaction between the environmental stresses and the students' appraisal, that is their expectation, or what they are expected to do, and the reactions for the same, how they are reacting. So it is also said, other recent researchers also talk about how these academic stressors or stresses are seen as career stoppers. Like it does not allow them to grow, but just curbs their ability to progress any further. So one of the major health concerns today, if you say, is stress, because it leads to a lot of mental health and physical health problems like depression, anxiety, behavioral problems, irritability. All of these are problems you see in students, especially because of the high levels of academic stress that they are experiencing. So, uh, incidences of depression is quite common with when see it in relation with stress in students, especially young people, teens, because they have a lot of trouble concentrating because of the stress that they are undergoing. They might be constantly scrutinized, and because of that they might have fear of failure, and also because they might worry about the future, what is going, or they might be anxious about the future, and it might lead to much more behavioral problems, depression, anxiety, etc. Now, we already discussed about the different types of stress, but according to American Psychological Association (APA), we are going to look at three different kinds that of stress. So one is acute stress, episodic acute stress, and chronic stress. So let's just try to look at the differences between between these three. So here, like we talked about the daily hassles, right? Daily hassles, your day-to-day life stresses, all would fall under acute stress. So it's like a short-term stress, but definitely there are triggers like traffic, you're running late to work, your vehicle accident. All of this could contribute to your stress. So that is an acute stress and short-term. Now, episodic stress is also a acute stress, but the reason why we call it episodic is because it happens more frequently, or it occurs more frequently. So sometimes you see people running late almost all the time, right? And they might be a little nervous on everything. So these kind of people might experience quite a bit of they might fall under this category of stress, where they have constantly, under stress. Now, chronic stress. So, when we're talking about the general adaptation syndrome, the GAS model, we looked at exhaustion, the third stage, right? So, when it comes to chronic stress, that is what is actually happening. It is actually affecting your health. You have unhealthy relationship. You'll be working on a very problematic work scenario or work conditions where you're constantly under stress, and it is not allowing you to grow any further or move ahead. Because of that stress, you are always constantly tired. You have physical distress. You experience a lot of tiredness, and it can even lead to conditions like heart attack, stroke, and all of that. So it is very important that we see how to manage these kind of stress. Now, let's just try to differentiate what can be grouped under acute stress and what can be grouped under chronic stress. So, when it comes to acute stress, a new challenge or athletic competition, a presentation at work, like lifting heavy weights, intermittent fasting, running sprints, all of this can be categorized under acute stress. Now, let's also look at what is chronic stress. Here, like driving to work, having a problem at workplace, again, an annoying boss, bad work schedule, a difficult spouse, poor sleep habits, negative friends, all of this also can come under chronic stress. Now, apart from all these things that we're discussing, there's something very important that we need to address. That is post-traumatic stress disorder, which is actually a clinically diagnosed problem or an issue or a disorder. So this comes under anxiety disorder. It falls under the category of anxiety disorders, and they said that when if a person has PTSD, it is affecting their stress hormones, and definitely the body is also changing its responses based on those hormonal changes that are happening in the individual's body. So when people have PTSD, they kind of require a lot of social support and clinical help, like therapies. They need to definitely go for therapies and get interventions done so that they can overcome this problem that they are facing. Now, there could be many category of people who could fall under PTSD. One of which is war veterans, because of the experience, like the constant violent bomb blasts, the firing, shootings, all of this can cause a lot of trouble for them, because the memory, the thought of the event itself, because they would have lost a colleague, a close one, a loved one, and that maybe they would have been killed right in front of them. All of this can add on to their stress, and it could cause that event or the memory of those events that they have experienced, they tend to relive again and again, and that is definitely going to cause them a lot of trouble and problem. And it is said that these kind of PTSD, it can even last from months to years. So definitely it's a lot of trauma, that because they are reliving these kind of experiences. Now, when you're talking about trauma, uh, would I would want you to think and try to understand which kind of a scenario is more traumatic. Is a trauma caused by humans or a trauma caused by natural disasters? So I would want you to think for like 2 3 seconds. I'm giving you that time. You can probably pause the video and you can think about it, and then later come back and watch the video. So, as I mentioned, you know, which one is more heavier, like, or which is more traumatic, a human-made disaster or a natural disaster? So, it is definitely human-made disaster, because um, we tend to believe that all humans are good, or there is some goodness in people. And actually, when there is a human-made disaster, we tend to believe that, that belief that we have, all the goodness of the people, all of that is being shattered right in front of us, and it is causing more trauma within us. Definitely human made disasters are affect people individually, maybe not as community, like unlike a natural disaster where a whole lot of communities would be affected. Definitely, even in human made disasters, you will have communities affecting, but then it is more likely that individuals, right, are most commonly affected, mostly affected than the whole community, because they might some the level of resilience, right, the people, how much they can how they can bounce back to the how they were previously, or how they can come back to normalcy. All of that matters. Now, being all this said, there are a lot of coping strategies available, even scientifically proven ones, scientifically tested ones, and there are hundreds of, coping strategies or techniques for us. But here today, we will just look at a few. And these ones that you see here on the screen is actually given by Carver and Connor Smith in 2010. They came up with these four distinct types, where you start off with problem focused was emotion focused coping, engagement was disengagement coping, meaning focused coping, proactive coping. So in problem focused coping, what happens is you are looking at the problem, and you're trying to uh, solve those issues ahead of time, even before the problem is occurring. Like I save money in anticipation of layoffs. That's an example of problem focused coping. Next is emotion focused. I engage in self soothing relaxation exercises to handle the stress brought about by layoffs. Then engagement was disengagement coping, where in engagement, I work on finding a new place to live after the looming divorce. You're engaging yourself, you're trying to engage and cope with that thing. Whereas in disengagement, you do not want to believe that something or such an event occurred, and you're trying to avoid that situation where you're disengaging yourself, where I refuse to believe that the divorce is happening. The third type, where meaning focused coping, losing my house and possessions in a fire reminded me of what is truly important in life, my family and friends. So you would have lost a lot of your possessions, material things, but you are actually trying to create meaning with whatever is existing. You're just trying to look at what is meaningful to you. Then proactive coping. I know that this confrontation with my friend is going to be challenging, so I'm going to make sure I have my thoughts organized before I bring up our issues. So it's like proactively taking, measures to, cope with the stresses that are ahead of you. Then also there's something known as occupation focused coping, right? Like when we change our occupation, it also can result in stresses. Like especially we know that during the COVID or the pandemic times, when it was really severe, there were frontline workers who were uh, you know constantly working. Definitely it's so stressful because they are away from their families. They have constantly have to work. They might have fear of acquiring the infection, but still they did not think about all those things. Still they would have fought, and fought for the lives of many other people. So uh, in such cases also, there are chances that people tend to have problems. So in case of occupation focused coping, what you try to see is, instead of just looking at, yeah, definitely there's a burnout, but you're trying to trying to help yourself or cope yourself, saying that, yes, I'm going to help people, I'm saving people's lives, especially like doctors or nurses. They might have a feeling like, yeah, I'm going to help people's lives. Maybe even though I have a burnout, there's a stress, but I have a satisfaction within myself because I'm saving people's lives. That is occupation based coping. Now there are several other types also. I'll just brief you about it, which is self-soothing, comforting yourself through your five senses, like touch, hear, your vision, your taste, smell. Then distraction, taking your mind off the problem of a while. This is one way that we can coping. Like when I'm telling you, or when I'm numbering these, recounting these coping skills or methods or techniques, you might yourself you might have been using this to cope with your own problems. That opposite action, doing something the opposite of your impulse, that's consistent with a more positive emotion, like affirmations. You see a lot of people affirming themselves, motivating themselves to get ahead and do things. Then cheering yourselves, all of that. Then emotional awareness, like tools for identifying and expressing your feelings. Then mindfulness, like meditation, prayers, yoga, relaxation techniques, all of that are going to help you. Then crisis plan, where you can contact support and resources available. Like you can contact therapists, you can contact hotline numbers, you can contact a crisis team, or even family and friends can help you with it. So these are different ways of coping. Now when we are trying to coping, we need to focus on certain things and take focus away from certain things. That is, you need to focus on things only that you can control, and take away your focus from things you cannot control, because that's out of our control. We cannot do anything. Like the others follow the rules of social distancing. This is in case of COVID, right? Especially during the COVID, the amount of toilet paper at the store, the actions of others, predicting what will happen, other people's motives, how others react, how long will this last. All of this is out of your control. So you need to take that thing off your mind and try to focus on something else that you can control, like your positive attitude. Turning off the news if required, when too much of news is also not good for you, because if it's causing you stress. How I how to follow recommendations by professionals. Then finding fun things to do at home, especially during the COVID times. There were a lot of families who came together and they had a lot of fun games planned and things like that. And limiting social media, these are things that you can control, like how kind and graceful you can be, how you can also manage your social distancing. All of that, all of these needs to be taken into consideration when you are, this is with in the context of COVID-19 I'm telling. But every time you are facing a stress, you are undergoing stress, you just come try to categorize things into what I can do or I can control, and what I cannot control, and try to focus on things that you can control, and definitely it is going to help you cope with the stresses. Now, all of us have different ways of coping with a problem. Not everyone has the same style, right? So, there are a whole lot of things that we can do. Like starting from exercise, you can look at life skills, maybe arts and crafts. If you're good, if you have a hobby, you can look at that. You can, if you're good at journal writing, then you can probably, that will help you a lot. Then listening to music, playing instruments, sleeping, games, riding bikes, soothing baths, taking breaks, beverage breaks, meditate, watching a comedy movie, hanging out with friends, spending time with family, and also definitely talking to a counselor, or even seeking therapy. All of that is gonna help. So there are different ways. Sometimes when things cannot be controlled, is things are not under our control, or like something, even if you try to cope with these things, you listen to music, you're writing journals, you're doing following your hobby, still it's not helping you, then definitely you can seek a counselor's or therapist's help, and definitely it is going to help you in overcoming your stress and cope with the issues. With that, we will end today's session, and see you all in the next session. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.